In a world filled with violence and corruption, the earth cried out for justice. The scene is set in a time before our own, a time of primal history, when the Creator gazed upon the creation he had made and saw that it had become corrupt. The question echoes through the ages: what happens when a world rejects its Maker? The story of the flood is a testament to the power of God's judgment and the promise of new beginnings. According to Genesis 6, the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The earth was filled with violence, and God was grieved that he had made man. But in the midst of this darkness, there was one man who stood apart, Noah. Genesis 6 verse 9 tells us that Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation, and that he walked with God. This was no ordinary man, for he had found favor in the eyes of the Lord. As we read in Genesis 6 verses 13 to 22, God spoke to Noah, telling him of the impending judgment that would come upon the earth. The Lord said, "I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth." But God also gave Noah instructions to build an ark, a vessel that would save him and his household, as well as 2 of every kind of animal, from the coming flood. The dimensions of the ark were precise: 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. It was to be made of gopher wood, with rooms and a roof, and covered with pitch inside and out. Saint Cyril of Alexandria observes that the ark is a symbol of the Church, which provides salvation for those who enter it. Just as the ark saved Noah and his family from the flood, so too does the Church save its members from the stormy waters of sin and death. This insight helps us to understand the deeper significance of the flood narrative, which is not just a story of judgment, but also of salvation and redemption. As we continue to read in Genesis 7, the day of the flood arrived, and the rains came down from heaven, while the fountains of the deep burst forth. The floodgates of heaven were opened, and the earth was inundated with water. Every living thing that moved on the earth perished, including man, animals, and birds. The earth was empty and silent, a desolate landscape devoid of life. But the ark floated on the surface of the waters, a refuge for all who were inside. Genesis 7 verse 24 tells us that the flood lasted for 150 days, and then the waters began to recede. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, and Noah released a raven, a dove, and a pigeon to determine if the waters had receded. The raven flew back and forth, but the dove and the pigeon did not return, indicating that the waters had indeed receded. As we read in Genesis 8 verses 13 to 19, Noah and his family emerged from the ark, and the Lord made a covenant with them, promising never again to destroy the earth with a flood. Genesis 9 verses 1 to 17 describes the covenant that God made with Noah and his sons. The Lord blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." He also gave them dominion over the animals, and provided them with a new diet, which included every living thing that moves on the earth. But the Lord also established a new moral order, prohibiting the shedding of human blood, and instituting capital punishment for murder. The rainbow was set in the sky as a sign of the covenant, a reminder of God's promise to never again destroy the earth with a flood. Saint Ephrem the Syrian notes that the flood was a judgment on the wickedness of humanity, but it was also a merciful act, for it saved the earth from further corruption and allowed for a new beginning. This insight highlights the complex nature of God's judgment, which is both just and merciful. As we reflect on the story of the flood, we are reminded that our actions have consequences, and that God is both the judge and the savior of the world. The story of the flood invites us to consider our own place in the world, and to seek refuge in the ark of salvation, which is the Church. As we navigate the stormy waters of life, we can find comfort in the promise of God's covenant, and strive to live in harmony with His will.